Kevin Feige has an update on the introduction of the Fantastic Four and the X-Men and everything else related to the Fox characters into the MCU. So, Mitch, what's the update?
He says he has a vague idea, and I don't believe that.
Yeah.
That man has everything planned.
Uh-huh.
He knows exactly what he's doing. Like, he's no doubt got like 3 rooms filled with ways and how it all fits.
Oh, yeah.
But like, don't give me this vague crap.
Well, so a part of me believes him, and a part of me understands what he's saying. And what he's telling people is, look, we don't have a script, because legally, Marvel Studios cannot hire people to write a script. It's not their property. But, just like he said, for every single character that they don't own, he has a contingency plan, and he knows how they want to work them in. And he recently even said in an interview, when they were working on Civil War, he walked into the writer's room and gave them, the Spider-Man web sign, meaning get to work, and they had to double take, like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, put them in the way we discussed it. Because they had ideas. They understood, if this moves forward, here's how we do it. And that's why they even said, oh, we just swapped out Ant-Man easily for, Spider-Man because we had a contingency plan. It's like, it makes sense. I think that's what he's saying. Like, if tomorrow they were to get everything approved, right? He probably has an idea of how to introduce any of these characters into any of the movies. So it's like...
So like basically you could have scene ready for Wolverine to appear, and if not, just replace it with one of the other characters if it doesn't go through.
Yeah.
Right.
I can still imagine him having scripts. They're just not called X-Men or Fantastic Four.
Right.
It's like, just replace names. Like, how...
Badger Man.
Exactly. You know how, like, casting calls do it, and they have, like, different names, but the description's spot on. Like, just do that. Like, just write this script. You'll get the money for it when we get the rights. He's got, like, 8 of those just all lined up to fit in the timeline.
And I think that's, like, one of the things you have to look at Marvel Studios as a whole as. He recently even did interviews talking about the next decade of the MCU and how they're specifically planning it and talking about it already and trying to line things up. And Peyton Reed even said, it's like, we're setting up pieces right now that you don't think are going to pay off, but they're going to pay off. So to me, it's like, I think what they're saying is like, get ready for the next decade to mimic the past 3 phases, but we're going to enter those in a very different way after Avengers 4, right? Like, it's going to be handled differently to some degree, because they haven't announced what the future is yet, and they won't till after Avengers 4. And then, of course, shuffling some movies. I mean, Black Panther 2 undoubtedly has that new February date, because it makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta get that money.
People was like trying to tell me that it was going to be 2021 anyway. It's like, look, they're not ever going to move that movie out of February.
No. Nope.
It's like Captain Marvel's not ever going to be out of March.
Exactly.
It's just simple.
Yeah, it was probably just some planning from Disney saying, "Are you sure Black Panther is going to be en route for February? Okay, let's move out Maleficent movie, put it down in December."
Yeah. It's probably like Cougar's schedule might have just freed up slightly, or he's officially signed on. So.
Yep.
Just got to wait for that announcement. But, it's definitely... There's no way in hell they're going to put that, like, in a May.
No, why would you want it? Like, look at the marketing behind Black Panther, and look at the importance of the month it came out in. You would literally have to be, like, insane to move it out of all that synergy. Like, it just doesn't make sense, right? Like, you wouldn't do that, and this automatically, the moment they moved out, I read that, I was like, oh, it's Black Panther. There's nothing else they're shoving in there. There is literally nothing else.
And the fact that they only had, one February date from the 9 they announced, like, that was clearly for that movie, and this is clearly for this one.
Yep.
Like, there's no, like, ifs or buts about it. But.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at, I guess, the future of it, by now, like, we're seeing all this Fox stuff that's kind of getting brought up and interesting things getting tossed around and rumors and lawsuits and Disney stuff. Realistically, it's still happening next year because it doesn't look like anything's going to break it apart, but there's always obviously constant news that it might fall apart, but...
I wanted to ask you about that. Like, this lawsuit thing, like... From what I've read, it doesn't... Like, I don't know if I'm getting it right, because a Fox shareholder is suing Fox because Disney didn't show Hulu and Sky projections.
Yeah. I mean, they can do that. It's within their right to do that, but there's really nothing else they can do.
I don't understand why Disney needs to show projections for two companies I don't currently own.
Okay, so here's how I understand it. And this took quite a bit of trying to figure everything out, reading the lines and trying to understand what's happening and looking at the stupidity it's worded really stupidly, which is why I think there's so much confusion. So apparently, yes, the dude is suing because he thinks that the offer that's being made by Disney is undervaluing Fox's assets. AKA, this dude and other people that he's talked to want more money. And believe it or not, yes, $52 billion was undervalued. Even $72 billion plus the debt, many people are saying is still undervalued for how much you're going to get. So what they're saying is, hey, look, if you want all of our stuff on your streaming service and we're being guaranteed, oh, it's going to make us more money if we sell to you, show us the numbers of how much your properties make on all these streaming services so we're confident, because apparently those numbers have not been disclosed. It's kind of like Netflix. We don't have official numbers on how many people watch their shows. We have analysts that look at it at peak hours and engage with polls and stuff, and they can extrapolate numbers out of that. That's the only way we know show views for any of these digital streaming services. And he wants them to be made public now, which this could be a bad thing because it could hurt people, because it's like if you get Runaways numbers and they go, oh, Runaways was actually only watched by 1 million people. Then you go, so it's not watched with any sort of engagement, and The Flash on CW gets 3 times that. That's not valuable to us. So that's my understanding of what's happening. Realistically, is it going to work? Maybe, but how I see it is probably they're going to disclose the numbers behind closed doors and agree upon something, because they're not making those numbers public. I want people to understand that.
Yeah, like for most any analytics for numbers, like in TV, most of the time they don't reveal any of that sort of data at all.
Yep.
You just get a rough estimate of people that just analyze the data and say, oh, this is what happened with this show. It's been seen by this many people, and it's being recommended by this many people.
Right. Like for example, Daredevil, how they reached the numbers that over 5 million people watched season 1 was they studied, I believe, about 20,000 people that they polled and said, hey, we don't know what you watch, but you have a Netflix account. Can you just log everything you watch and how much you watched of it and send it back to us? And out of those 20,000-ish people, a certain amount came back and they go, okay, if this person represents X amount of people, then fine. Then 10,000 people for this every one person. So they're kind of doing it like those Nielsen TV ratings, where it's not an exact measurement. It's definitely not. But it's the closest approximation you can get. And the moment any of these streaming services show their hand, they kind of start to suffer. It's just the nature of the beast. And the only reason, because someone might bring it up, and WWE Network does this, they disclose some of their subscriber numbers. That's because they're an entire channel devoted to just wrestling, and they know their bar, and they know how many subscribers they get and how many they need to increase. So they're doing that because they realize that the future is not on TV. They're trying to get away from pay-per-views. That's why all their pay-per-views are on the network and not really on pay-per-view anymore, because it's a dying archaic system. In a couple years, all these, like Netflix and Hulu, they're all going to start giving you numbers because TV's more or less going to be dead. But for right now, this lawsuit is holding things back because of people want more money, naturally. So, it's...
I assumed it just boiled down to that, and it's like greedy execs. It's like, you're getting X amount of billions, like, calm down.
Right.
But, like, every article I read, it was never really clear why it was needed for that. And it's just like, I don't know, it was all weird, and like no one could really give me an answer. So
yeah, it was so strange. It took me so long reading. Like I've told people before, I like to trade some stocks. I don't invest in Comcast or nothing, none of that crap. But like, I'm just kind of interested in that whole facet. So I constantly read what's happening in the market and stuff. So I'm trying to understand it. And the way that came out, I didn't understand a single thing they said. Like I was like, what does this even mean?
It just boils down to sometimes the most complicated question it gets the most simplest answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
That's 100% factual. So after that, we're transitioning over to our next Spider-Man scoop, I guess.